We are 1 week away from Brittney Elkin versus Claressa Shields. And now, while I did a deep dive on my thoughts on this fight, I stopped just short of making an official prediction. That didn't stop everyone from telling me how wrong I was, which we'll get into in a minute, including the greatest woman of all time, Claressa Shields herself. Most of the pushback and arguments I got, including the ones from Shields herself, were poorly thought out, immature, and kind of dumb. I'm going to address all those, but I'm also going to give you my official prediction, but I'm going to cover all my bases. I'm going to tell you exactly how Brittney Elkin wins this fight, and I'll tell you how I think Claressa Shields can win this fight too. I don't think that this fight is getting the attention it deserves from social media. It's not as big a lightning rod as the other crossover events, and I think it's unfairly compared to those freak show fights. This is a real fight between real combat athletes. I think Claressa Shields going to MMA is a way more respectful and sincere endeavor than any of this other crossover type stuff we've seen, and Brittney Elkin is a legitimate martial artist and combat athlete. I think that this is closer to the spirit of MMA than anything else like this that has happened. So don't get me wrong, I think it's a huge deal that Claressa Shields is at the top of one sport and making this foray into MMA. I think that's enormous and amazing and admirable and brave. I just think it's a little ill-informed. I just don't think anyone is properly prepared for it. It's just a guess. When I made the statement that Claressa Shields was not that good a boxer, I didn't realize at the time how controversial that was. Since then, since all the pushback, I feel like I'm Roddy Piper in They Live. I feel like I'm wearing glasses and I just see what I see, I take them off, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the greatest woman of all time." And I'm like, what are you looking at? What are we seeing? Now, because of my job, both in person and in DMs, I interact with a good number of professional fighters, boxing trainers, MMA trainers, coaches, that sort of thing. And I'm not going to say 100% because I'm going to give everyone that I know personally an out so they could say that they're part of the 1%. But 99% of the professionals in the field that I've talked to have said, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that, man. I thought I was crazy. I don't think she's that good, and I don't know what everyone's talking about." And this was the funniest thing to me when Claressa Shields herself commented on the video. I didn't realize it was her at first. And she said she turned it off after she heard that. It was like a temper tantrum type comment, and there was a lot of those. As far as dumb comments go, the one that takes the cake is, "Oh yeah, you should spar Claressa or fight her. I bet she'd knock you out or beat you up." Like, if you challenge somebody to fight somebody else because you disagree with them, that is a bitch move. Like, you're not even, first of all, being mad enough that you want somebody to fight over words, like, that's a pathetic, small-minded way to think. But if you want them to fight somebody else because you don't like what they say, like, you fucking loser. Claressa Shields' fan base shares a lot in common with her. When they hear things they don't like, they're like, "Oh, yeah, oh my God." You know, like, just nothing. Not really open. She strikes me as the type of person that doesn't take criticism very well, so I kind of like looked into it, and based on her replies to me on YouTube and on Instagram, it's very clear that she doesn't. She flips out if anyone says anything negative. She takes it very personally, and I think that's going to be kind of part of the problem with her fight training, which is kind of what I alluded to in the other video. I don't think people around her are really going to give her good criticism. Conor McGregor gave her a shout out, and she, in her reply, made sure that he got the spelling of her name right. What? But I just get the impression that if you know her, you're like on eggshells all the time, that she's probably really, really nice if you're cool, and then if you just say the wrong thing, she's just... That's the impression I get from following her on social media and seeing what she's doing there. I follow Brittney Elkin on Instagram as well. Now, Brittney Elkin is just a fighter. All her posts are like a fighter's post. It's just her training, it's her shouting out her sponsors, it's her showing love to teammates, it's just her getting ready for a fight. Claressa Shields' Instagram and YouTube and everything is just her telling you how great she is, herself. Ego is a motherfucker. Claressa Shields has a well-documented humongous ego. I don't think there's anyone that'll argue with that. Like, you could argue whether or not she's a good boxer. You could argue whether or not she's a nice person. You could argue with everything else I just said. There's no way that you can argue that she doesn't have a humongous ego. She refers to herself as the greatest woman of all time. Now, Brittney Elkin seems like a more humble person, but she said something in an interview that's troubling. She said, and I'm paraphrasing, that she wants it to be clear that she could win this fight anywhere it goes, alluding to that she could stand with Claressa. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you don't do that, you will win this fight. Don't do that. Do anything else, literally anything else, but don't do that. And this ego thing isn't exclusive to this fight. A lot of times ego can get in the way. It doesn't get in the way as much as you would think in the cage, which I think Brittney might be all right on her end. It gets in the way during training. Like, if you think you're good enough, and I've been a victim of this myself, and I've had fighters who were a victim of this, where we think, we're good, I don't need to prepare that much. Now, Claressa Shields is preparing for, her MMA debut. And she's still kicking. Oh my God. I made a comment about her kicks looking bad. She posted a training update on the kicks. They still look bad. I think they kind of look worse. Her legs seem slow and like she seems heavy-footed. I don't think she should kick. She does look good at kicking for someone who's only been doing it for 6 months. Brittney Elkin is a veteran of this stuff. And people think, based on her record and her past, that she's a bum or she's a jobber. And I agree that she was specifically picked to job out on this fight. They're trying to hand-feed Claressa Shields an opponent. I drew the parallel to James Toney in the last video just as a joke. I think a more apt parallel would be maybe Kimbo Slice, how they sort of picked opponents. They wanted them to have like credible threats, but they ultimately wanted to win because they were trying to build a star. I think that's more along the lines of what's happening here. I know that Shields is training at Jackson Wink with the likes of Holly Holm and John Jones. I know that. But if everything they say is true, if everything she said in interviews or she said on Joe Rogan, if all of that's true, she's only been there for 6 months. She says she got there in December. She's only rolled with her coach, which is a great way to learn, but not a great way to practice. And maybe they're sandbagging. Like, maybe they're not telling the truth about her training, which would be sort of weird and unnecessary, I think. I know they're trying to build a star. The aforementioned example with Kimbo, they're trying to build a star. And now, as I say that, I'm thinking about the fact that they offered Kimbo's opponents money not to take him down. I don't think anything like that is going on, but the odds makers on this are kind of out of control. Brittney Elkin is like a huge underdog. But I do feel like a little weird going all in on Brittney Elkin as a pick. Otherwise, I would make a pretty sizable bet. I probably still will. Oh, yeah, there was my official prediction. Brittney Elkin to win. But let's talk about how these women can win this fight, how each fighter could win. Claressa Shields only really has one move. She can hit Brittney Elkin in the face with her fist hard enough that Brittney Elkin just doesn't fight well. That's literally the only way Claressa Shields can win. If Brittney Elkin chooses to be in a position where Claressa can land her right hand, and then after the right hand lands, she doesn't do anything else. Like, she just stands there and takes more of them or whatever. That's literally the only way Claressa Shields can win. Since there's only one way she can win, I don't really like that pick. So my pick is Brittney Elkin. Brittney Elkin has a few things that she can do, but she only really needs one tactic. If all I have to worry about is the right hand, that's really the only thing. Yes, she can be hit with lots of other things, but the only thing that's troubling is a hard right hand. All we need to do is change levels, get that shoulder up in front of her face and pump that jab out, not with the intention of landing these jabs or hurting her with these jabs, but just pushing forward to our body lock. That's all we got to do. Get the body lock, mash her up against the cage. If you want a good example of this, watch Rob Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. And Rob Whittaker was using this type of entry, like sort of a low loading in his legs, jabbing upward into Israel Adesanya's face to get closer. And you might think, well, that didn't really work for him. He was also fighting Israel fucking Adesanya. Israel Adesanya, who possesses enough power in his punches to knock you out while leaning back like this. And that's exactly what Izzy did. He would lean back and still land shots that were damaging and hurt Robert Whittaker. Brittney Elkin doesn't really have to worry about that. She just takes whatever's going to happen, push forward, get that body lock. Now, you could also argue that it would be super easy to take a big telegraph shot and count on Claressa Shields' takedown defense not being that good. But I will give her the benefit of the doubt and say that they've probably drilled that a bunch, and there still is the possibility that she could wind up on bottom. I have no questions that Elkin would be able to get up or, get regard or whatever, but it's an unnecessary risk. I think you just push to body lock, push her against the cage, and then you drag her to the ground, or you grind your forehead into her chin and you frustrate and tire her. Her grappling cardio is not going to be there. It's not going to be the same as Brittney Elkin's. I want to say late in round 1, but maybe round 2. But that's it. That's what's going to happen. Late in round 1, early in round 2, I wish I could feel confident that I could pick it exactly. But mash her up against the fence, body lock, drag her to the ground some kind of way, TKO with strikes or rear naked choke. That's as specific as I feel like getting. I'll probably be wrong on some of that.